I know some people will think it's weird for me to be making a video about an offensive lineman who didn't even start the season last year for Green Bay, but Green Bay fans will not be thinking this is weird whatsoever because Elgton Jennings is a guy who, he was a very high hyped up prospect coming out of the draft. Was one of the better interior offensive linemen. He was a second round pick, and that was it was not the most recent draft, but the one before that. And so Green Bay drafted him, and he played center in college. So I think a lot of people thought he was going to continue playing center, but he ended up having to fill in at guard, and he actually played really well at guard. Like, take a look at this play. He's going up one-on-one against that Kansas City player right there, so that's what he's going to be trying to do here. And what I like about this is, first, he's going to, initiate the contact very well, but you notice that his assigned man is doing a pretty good job at trying to get to the outside. It's going to be a run in that direction, so he has to try and make sure that he doesn't allow that Kansas City player to get to the outside and be able to make a tackle. But also what he has to do is he can't hold him. So it's very difficult to do that. You want to be able to make this play, but obviously if you just like yank onto his arm, it's going to be a holding penalty, as you can actually see if you look a little bit over to the left, as that's what Bakhtiari is doing. So this whole play isn't even going to end up mattering, but I still think it's worth showing, because what he's going to end up doing is he's going to basically just get his left arm and sort of just put it as far as he can over to the right side of that Kansas City player's body, so to his left, and just sort of twist and push as much as he can, which allows him to sort of get him out of position just enough. And now, again, didn't matter. There was a penalty on the play. It wasn't from Jenkins, although, he definitely towed the line a little bit. But listen, towing the line isn't necessarily a terrible thing, especially when you have to. I mean, let's be real. We all know, I'm sure Minnesota Vikings, Detroit Lions fans, and Chicago Bears fans are all saying the Packers hold on every play. Well, what are you talking about? But this is definitely not a hold. This is just putting your hand in a hold-like position, but not actually holding. Again, sometimes the refs will screw up and call it, but for the most part, they do a pretty good job. But again, the holding call was on someone else, so it didn't even matter. But honestly, that's kind of a minor point. Maybe I shouldn't have started with that one. But either way, this play is a more major point. It's going to be a run to the right side of the screen. And it's going to, so, for Jenkins, he has to move over and he has to block that Kansas City player. But he has to move over. He can't just block him straight up. If this was a run to the left, it would be a lot easier for him. But watch how he does this, and watch how he moves over. And not only does he get in position, but if you look at his right foot, he does a very good job of getting his right foot over enough that he can create some power right here, so that he can just sort of try to push him back enough and further enough away from the right side of the screen to where he can try and make a play. So from that, he's able to easily win the matchup. Again, just a good play, good footwork there is what you like about him. And he just, he does sort of have that center-like tendency if he moves very quickly right when the ball is snapped, because that's what you have to do as a center. But as a guard, you can get a lot further than you can when you are a center. So it kind of works both ways, I think. It's almost like if you were playing baseball with a heavier bat your whole life, and then you play with a lighter bat, and you can hit the ball, swing it a lot faster. It's kind of like that. I do think that he will also make some legitimate highlight reel level blocks. He's not just someone who filled in and held his own. He's someone who had played really well when he came in. And he would have some Houdini acts for sure, like a play like this where he's going up one-on-one again against a Kansas City player, and what you're going to see this Kansas City defender do is he's going to fake as though he's going to the left, but then go to the right, and he fools Jenkins. It's a good move. He's further to the middle of the field, and so this isn't a death sentence. It's obviously a bad start to this play, but you can come back from this, right? I mean, you can simply just push him further over to the right side of the screen. You let Rodgers move to the left a little bit. Maybe he can even scramble. It's definitely not an ideal situation, but it's not a death sentence. And really what you have to do now is just sort of accept the fact that you're not going to stop him. Rodgers is going to have to move, but you can at the very least push him away so that Rodgers isn't going to get sacked. Except not really, because again, what Jenkins has better than a lot of guards in this league have is footwork. And watch his right foot and how he steps it so far over that he's actually able to just hold him right there. Just a tremendous play, I think. Now, some people might say that one thing that helped him was that he had Bakhtiari right next to him. And I think that's fair. Like, I do think it helped him that he had Bakhtiari to his left. That definitely is an advantage, but I also think he sort of used that to his advantage. Like a play like this, So what's going to happen is that there's essentially 4 players to watch, as those are the 4 guys they are in charge of blocking. So this is Jenkins, Bakhtiari, and then 2 tight ends to the right. So obviously Jenkins is the guy who is furthest to the left that I have drawn on the screen with a design block. And of course, Chicago probably isn't going to send all 4 of those guys rushing. So typically what you do is if one of them isn't blitzing, well, then the player who is in charge of blocking them will just find somebody else to block. But what's going to end up happening right here is that, so Jenkins knows that. And watch how he basically, his whole goal right here is to just get to the left side of the screen of 98, the guy he's going up against. The purpose of this is that because he can look over now and see, okay, 57 is dropping back into coverage, well, then we're good. And if he wasn't, if he was rushing the passer, well, then Jenkins still has a pretty solid chance to make this block. So he's, he knows Bakhtiari is there, and he knows Bakhtiari can easily pick up a block if he has to, but if he doesn't have to, he'll be fine. And as you see, Bakhtiari then is easily able to finish off that block, and they're easily able to make the block. You'll also see just a bad dropped pass as well, so that's not very good. But, as a whole, from the offensive line, definitely very well done. I think that his great footwork and his really good first step on a lot of these running plays really shouldn't be understated, and this is an example where, a center and left guard will be double teaming an interior lineman, and then I don't know why I felt the need to say a left guard. We all know it's Jenkins. That's the title of the video. Jenkins is then going to move up and block a linebacker. So he, finishes off a double team, then moves up to block a linebacker. That's his job on this play. And watch how quickly he does it, where he just moves a little bit over and then quickly gets over and is able to block 57. That's what you have to do. You could argue that he probably should have, laid into that double team a little bit more, but I'm not sure if he really had to. I'm not sure if that was his job. The main reason this run wasn't really a great one was more of what happened further to the right side of the screen. Not really his fault at all. He actually did very good on that play. And that's just one of the things I like about him, again, is his quick footwork is just so interesting to watch. He's really good at that. Typically what you want out of a center is someone who maybe isn't as big as some of your other offensive linemen, but they can move quickly and they have good footwork. That's kind of what the idea is. They'll be smaller for an offensive lineman, but quicker than an offensive lineman. Well, Jenkins is 6'5" and 311 pounds. He's not undersized. He can play guard, and he proved it last season. One more thing I want to talk about before I end this video is going to be his IQ. I think his football IQ is very good for a rookie especially. This play is an example where, so that's where he is on the screen, and there's going to be a twist, basically meaning that those 2 Chicago players are going to start off as though they're blocking, running up against the center and left guard, but then they're going to switch over, and sometimes this can fool you as a player. If you're an offensive lineman, you might continue to block the person who moves over, but then someone else is able to run around you and get completely free. And as you notice, Jenkins does kind of start to go in that direction. He is moved over a little bit, so you'll see a lot of, especially young guys, really screw this up and really not be able to get over to finish off the block that you now have to make, or they won't totally pass off the guy, right? Which, he could have just sort of, when he's blocking 92, maybe he would, move over too quickly and not pay attention to him just to get over to block the new guy he's supposed to block, which could leave somebody else easily able to run through and create pressure, but he doesn't want to let either of those things happen. So he has to, make sure he finishes off the block for 92 and then get over to block 91, and he's able to do both of those things, and he gets in very good position. And again, there's no real pressure there. I do think Jenkins is very good, and listen, I just sort of had the thought, I'm not justifying the draft pick of Jordan Love, but hey, maybe there is some logic in drafting somebody even with a high pick, even if they're not going to necessarily start the next season. Again, I'm not justifying that pick, but sometimes in certain positions it does make sense, especially with offensive linemen, where anyone can go down at any given moment. It's definitely a position that's it's tough to play for sure. It's tough on the body. And so for Green Bay, having an extra offensive lineman that can really block well, let's be honest, I feel like they just, sometimes it feels like they can just pick those guys off of a tree. They're so good at finding good offensive linemen. But this is another example. So yeah, listen, I know that typically the offensive lineman videos tend to not do very well, but every now and then I like to make them because I think that it's good to give some of the big guys some love, and it is fun to break down, I think. And so I wanted to, not only make a video about an offensive lineman, but about one who probably deserves more credit than they have gotten. And I mean, let's be real, I think there's plenty of people who probably didn't even know the name of this guy and didn't know who I was talking about before they watched the video. So I figured I just, shine some positive light on someone like that. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Of course, as always, let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.